You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there, and welcome to the week following Super Bowl. Oh my God, I think it was 56. The Super Bowl played in 2022, I believe, was Super Bowl 56 with the LA Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Rams won. Wonderful. Let's talk about halftime. Let's talk about the halftime show, though, because that's what everyone is really talking about today. That's what anyone ever talks about. They don't even talk about the two teams that played. Oh, well, I'll get to that in just a minute. But anyway, I want to share this explanation of the halftime show. It came from a woman's soul. And at the time that I am actually sharing this with you, it only was posted about 3 hours ago because I'm recording this the Monday following the Super Bowl. Anyway, my point is, this really and truly summed up the Super Bowl halftime show, I think, this year on so many levels. And I wanted to give a nod to that. It says that as a generation, the last 2 years, as a generation being the generation that I'm in, okay? Let me start over. As a generation, the last 2 years, we have had to bury our parents, friends we grew up with, and lost our careers. We have had to start all over while being faced with new responsibilities associated, a quote-unquote new normal during these quote-unquote unprecedented times. We needed this 13 minutes. For 13 minutes, on a Sunday in the middle of probably the most mentally and emotionally taxing time of our lives. Us Gen X / millennials were comforted, recharged, and did not have a care in the world. We were taken back to a simpler time in our lives. We were encouraged knowing that the one and only D-O-double-G is riding with the DRE, and we partied like it was our birthday with 50. We got it crunk with Mary and reminded we don't need no hateration. We were reminded by Eminem that when you have one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you've ever wanted, take it. Lose yourself in the moment. Own it and never let it go. These are the reminders we needed. We are the strongest, most influential generation to date. We still got it. We needed this halftime show to remind us, and I am like freaking near tears. This was posted originally by a woman's soul on Facebook, as far as I can tell. Anyway, that said, the other thing that I wanted to get into before I launch into another fun, weighty topic today is I have a new review on Apple Podcasts that I want to share that came from Cat's Rule 67 that is titled Beam of Light Human. And it says, I'm so happy I discovered Sunny because she's a beam of light human. Her voice is soothing to my soul. She's extremely intelligent, charismatic, funny, and has a heart of gold. When I listen to her podcasts, I really feel like she is talking to me. They are informative, well thought out, and down to earth. Thank you, Sunny. Keep lighting us up. Whew, Cats Rule 67. Thank you, sweetheart, from the bottom of my soul. Thank you for taking just a moment to write such a heartfelt review of this podcast. That means so very much. Well, I don't have a ton of reviews on this podcast, and that's fine. That's all good, because you know what? The ones that I do have, you can actually go back and watch the progression and see how much deeper they go. Every one that I get is so very meaningful. So thank you, my love, for posting that. That is just flippin' amazing. I can't even begin to express. Now, let's get back to welcoming this particular topic today. And I am still just a little bit hoarse. I am getting over another bout of bronchitis. That is my self-diagnosis. That is what I have understood to happen at times. From time to time, I get a cold, and it is extended for a month, and it gets really in my chest and that kind of thing. So this is what is happening. I am on the downward stretch. I am negative for COVID. There is that. I just want to make sure that everyone understands. If I do this and I sound a little phlegmy or that kind of thing, that's what's happening. I really am getting over a bout of bronchitis, and unfortunately. Fortunately, it only happens every few years, and I can honestly say I haven't even had a cold in a couple of years. So it's like, okay, well, the universe says, well, we're going to, save everything up, and we're going to give it all to you at once. Let's just get a couple of years worth of colds all at once. So I promise it is on its way out. Hang in there with me. But welcome to yet another example of my continued defiance of expressing only the happiest moments that make up our lives, and instead I just call it like I see it. So there you have it. Guess on that note, diving right into the depths, because that was one of the oracle cards that I pulled this morning when I asked what messages I was being called to share. So there you have it. I will share a little bit more about that card later, because it surely resonated, and I wanted to ensure that message is carried through here today, that message. I'm also going to ditch any references that I have learned along the way around talking about failure. And by that, I mean, I'm not going to pull out any books from the shelf, and I'm not going to talk about any influencers within the world of self-help and coaching that I have heard from or learned from. In this particular talk, I am not going to do that. In other words, I'm not going to include anything here today other than what I have learned personally about failure. Perhaps some direct references from other humans who have had a hand in teaching me about it, just not in ways I may have done before. Going to use my oracle card readings, which are really an extension of me, and maybe a couple of definitions of what failure means as a term, and that's about it. In fact, let's just get straight to that, since the title of this episode is When You Feel Like a Failure. First of all, I don't think failure is a feeling or an emotion, so let's get that out of the way. But I'm using an expression that is very common for us to use, and that's feels like. What we really mean when we say that is that We have taken on the identity of someone who has failed. And so we label ourselves or others as failures. We say we feel like it. And honestly, I think that is our first mistake because we aren't actually identifying how we truly feel. But hold that thought for a minute, because I also want to get to what the word actually means. When you hear it in this way, it tends to change things. Failure means the definition, the straight definition of failure means the omission of expected or required action. That's it. The omission of expected or required action. You expected an outcome to look a certain way, and if it didn't hit exactly on the mark, then you failed. Or an entity, let's say a classroom, has a requirement that you didn't meet. You failed to meet the requirement of, say, a passing grade. And all of it is arbitrary. Someone somewhere decided on a certain grading system for public schools, for example. Then everyone who is a part of the system needs to comply or stay within the structure or the boxes that have been defined as success. Those who fall outside of said structure, well, they have failed. And maybe we call them failures. Maybe we say that about ourselves. Maybe we say that's how we feel, like a failure. So that's a pretty straightforward example that everyone can understand, right? We understand the systems and structures around education and what it means to pass or to fail. They are essentially universal. Now, what happens when you are no longer a part of that structure? When the world is your classroom and there are a whole lot of nuances around what success actually means. Success as a human. Well, we don't often view it that way. We view success as whatever that expected outcome was going to be, don't we? And if we don't meet it, we have failed. Failed to keep a relationship together. Failed to land that dream job. Failed to create or remain a part of a community of like minds. Failed. Now let's talk about how that really feels. Because I've had friends say, and I do agree to some extent, that failure is just a word. It's really about what you make it mean. Yes, I can get on board with this, but here's where I think we need to go a little deeper, and where thought work as a singular healing modality cannot stand on its own. I've had a lot of episodes about thought work. It was the majority of my earlier work because at that time I truly believed that it was the be-all, end-all. Being exposed to my own thoughts in ways that I hadn't always been through therapy in the past was a total game changer in the beginning. It's a great introduction. It is not everything. But keeping it at the surface for just a little bit longer, I think finding the thought you have around making a statement such as, I feel like a failure, can be super beneficial and empowering. So it would actually be the first place I would ask you to start. What does feeling like a failure, those words, that expression, feeling like a failure, what does feeling like a failure mean to you. What exactly happened and what was the thought that led you to feel like a failure? Finding that thought is important because that's going to uncover the real emotion that's beneath the surface. Is it inadequacy, anger, frustration, rage, shame? Those things we try to stay away from because we have been told it is not the place to go. And a lot of what you feel from having the thought that you do, whatever that thought is going to come from what your own conditioning has been, what your own upbringing was like, your own personal lived experiences, your history, and most importantly, the beliefs that you have created over time with the insistence of your parents, teachers, and other humans you have been trying to win the approval of for your entire fucking life. There it is. The places that we tend to avoid, especially within the coaching industry, because there's a lot to consider. The thoughts that come up immediately have been created by the sum of your experiences. And that's okay. It is what it is. We just don't talk about that much. But I want you to think about it today. I want you to think about it with me as I share a few details behind a recent failure of my own. If you follow me on social media, this is the detail behind the double middle finger photo that I posted last week. Oh yeah, want the deets? Happy to share. Let's do it. When I do this, I'm going to deconstruct my own situation just a bit, and I want you to follow along so you can do this with your own personal failure. Listen, this is good stuff. It's going to light you up to be able to do this when those shadows creep in. That's the whole point about talking about this hard shit. It's not about feeling good all of the time because we simply don't. We have a contrast of emotions all day, every day. See them, inspect them, dance with them for a little while, and then reconcile and heal. If you are always searching for the bright side of things and you turn away from the shadow side, then you're not going to learn. And that shadow is going to keep coming up. Ask me how I know. Okay, here's the scoop. Here's the scoop because I know that's what you really want to know. In order to be an active member of this particular club, no, I'm not going to go so far as to tell you which club that is. Not quite ready for that. Maybe another day. There are rules in order to be an active member of this particular club. Ever evolving rules, I might add. So I became a member of this club a few years ago, and at the time I was so proud to be a part of it. But over the years, I started seeing the cracks in the facade, and I was being exposed to things that were very much counter to my own values. Just adding this because it bears a lot of meaning around how all of this played out. Because I explored those cracks for a while. Probably too long. Because there was still a part of me, that shadow part, that wanted to continue being a member of this club. It comes with a certain status. It comes with a level of, shall we say, exclusivity? Or at least it did. I thought that it did. I thought that it meant one thing, and I learned that it meant something entirely different when aligned to my own values and beliefs, unique to me, because I am a unique human being. No one else is like me. Facts. One of the newer requirements is that you have to take an annual test in order to remain actively in the club and receive certain perks. Those perks are primarily communications, access to a private website, access to in-person events. All things that I have quite honestly been living without since the pandemic, so it's all good. Whatever. I took it last year, that test, so I had a sense of what it was like, and quite honestly, I wasn't that impressed with the process or the content of the questions. That's my thought. I'm happy with it. I'm keeping it. I am good. This year, when the requirements were published, basically giving hints around the subject matter of the test, I watched so many of the alumni form these study groups and plan reviews and create spaces to share insights, and I thought, well, good for them. This particular club is not something I want to put that kind of effort towards staying active in. I didn't do any of that. Then I took it a step further simply because I was feeling very defiant for a main course with a side of righteous anger. Defiance is the main course. Righteous anger is the side. I threw the test on purpose. I gave absolute junk responses. And I did that with intent because I was conducting a test of my own. Are they really even reading these? Well, my friends, what I actually ended up doing was a fun little experiment that has become the cultural equivalent of fuck around and find out. That's what happened. I fucked around with that test. I found out that they actually do read the responses. So when I posted an image of me with my double middle fingers, part of the message that came with it, that I was doing this in response to an email that I had received from an entity that I used to admire that said I had failed and was therefore denied. It was about the fact that I didn't like the words they used in their response to me, which is fair play because they probably didn't care for the words they read in my responses to their test. Yeah, fuck around and find out is really just a more fun way to say that we deal with the consequences of our own actions. I just wanted to share that little backstory with you because I think it's important to own our actions truly. And I think it's an important distinction to make when we talk about failure. Remember the definition. Let's go back to that. The definition of failure is the omission of expected or required action. This entity had a required action in order to maintain standing with them, and I essentially omitted. I purposely failed to provide that because I truly wanted to know what would happen if I did. On one hand, I fucked around and found out. On the other, everything worked as intended from both sides. Now I know, and so do they. Now I don't know if I'll be blacklisted, and it's all good. None of this impacts my abilities and my efficacies as a coach, by the way. I am still an amazing coach. I am still a certified coach, perhaps even more so because I am willing to play stupid games and win stupid prizes along the way in order to better understand myself. Because I'm telling you this, even though the outcome was honestly what I'd hoped it would be, I had hoped to learn that they would read the responses and that all of those hours of studying from others would not have been wasted time and energy. I really did. I had hoped that. And even with that, I was still pissed that the response was, "You have failed and therefore you are denied access." I was like, hey now, be nice and professional, be kind. I don't think I was unkind in my responses, but I will own that I was not professional. What I really got to explore in myself and in my own shadows from that experience was that I still have some values and beliefs that I am clinging to when it comes to how others should behave. Does that sound familiar at all? In this example, for me, how an entity should, quote unquote, communicate to me that I have failed. First of all, don't use that word, failure. Soften it up, okay? Okay, that's so crazy. I wasn't all that angry that I didn't pass. I didn't expect to. I was angry because of the language they used and how direct they were about it. 3 sentences, direct and to the point. Meanwhile, I am probably one of the most direct humans you will ever meet. And in my past life of this existence, of this life, that part of me has been highly conditioned to have a heightened awareness that words matter. And they do. They do matter. I've said that before and I haven't ditched that concept at all because that is my own concept. Words do matter. They matter in terms of what they mean to you and what you have been conditioned to make them mean. So both things are true. First and foremost, it is just a word, failure. It is a word that is in our language, and it also has become a universal truth to separate the haves and have-nots. That's what it has been used for. It's become a freaking formula. If this, then that. If this thing happens or it doesn't happen, then that means you have passed or you have failed. And it is a word that many of us have been brought up to believe as an identity. It's not even about the event itself, whatever that may be. We end up wearing it like a comfy coat. Like we carry it around like our favorite blanket. It becomes a part of our very being if we aren't mindful about it. I'm a failure. Yikes. And just because I'm a coach who can teach you the power of your own thoughts, and that it's not so much about what others say and do, it's what you make it mean, I want to be very clear that I don't think that absolves us coaches of being compassionate humans. That is a major sticking point with me when I come across others in my industry challenging me and turning it back on my thoughts in a way that absolves them of any responsibility to take a thoughtful approach to communication. Yeah. I uncovered a deeply held belief that if I have had to smooth out my communications over the years in order to be accepted and maybe even admired, then others should too. Certainly a large organization. Well, that's cute, Sunny. As if the same rules apply to all of the people. We all know that's not true. And just because you used to admire this entity, I'm still talking to myself here, it doesn't mean they have to continue to please you, or that they ever did. The minute you decided you were no longer going to please them, all bets were off. That's what I had to acknowledge for myself. It is true, though. It is my truth. This is the depth that I want to take you through today. Oh, that's right. I said I was going to share my oracle card. Well, one of them. I did a few today. All right, the one that really grabbed me for this conversation came from my starseed deck, where I pulled the Whale and Orca Elders card. And the message that comes with that is they see beyond the physical, the woundings, the identity, the personality, the story. They see right into your soul and encourage you to peel back the layers of suffering and pain and reveal to others your soul's true song, and endeavor to see the souls of those that you meet. Oh, that was so good. That was just a part of it, of course, but I'm just sharing the highlight, the spark that brought me to share this with you today. First of all, to peel back the layers and to share more about what prompted me to just flip off the whole game. There's a story behind that. Way too much for a social post, but not something I'm going to keep vague and ambiguous. The truth is that I threw the game first. Then I flipped it off because I thought they should be better. The truth is I already thought they should be better in other ways, which is why I played the way that I did. It was my way of giving myself permission to be authentically me. If I can do it by telling the story of an organization that morphed into something that was honestly toxic for me, cool. In reality, there are numerous ways to end that relationship. This is the choice that I made. It's what I felt called to do, and I felt supported by my decision. Internally, I feel supported in a way that I very likely wouldn't have had I chosen another route to leave this particular club. It was far less about finding others who agree with me and support me in my decision to fail. It's so much more about finding myself and what I really wanted. It turns out what I really wanted was to be severed, cut loose, let go, to be finished, to stop dancing around and pretending to be a part of something I no longer agree with, to be free, to be me. Damn, that feels amazing. So if failure is found on the path to freedom and amazement and honoring of self, then sign me the fuck up. If my inner child surfaces and throws a bit of a tantrum on the way out the door, I forgive her. She acts out from time to time. She is still learning. She is becoming better and better at quickly applying what she learns, though, with far less wallowing and crying about it. Some is still there, far less. Because I've played on the other side of the field long enough. I know all about trying to please others, checking the box of acceptable behavior, and using the right words in an email, and believing that as long as everyone is happy with me, then that means I'm good enough. That needs to cease. Now, it doesn't mean that I won't backslide every now and then, because overcoming a lifetime of conditioning is not a simple feat. It's absolutely attainable, but I am willing to give myself grace and space to learn and grow and get a little messy sometimes. I would love to see you do the same, and just start with the willingness. Explore how willing that you are to change your own story around what it means to fail or to feel like a failure. And here's where I want to also briefly interject a concept that recently hit me, only because it was expressed in words. We tend to think our feelings instead of actually feel them. So that's why words matter so very damn much. Our language is a result of our evolution. And yes, our language continues to evolve as we do. I mean, fuck around and find out is an example of evolution. No, seriously, it's a phrase. Each generation will recreate existing language and even create mashups of new terms to convey how we feel, often without really telling anyone how we truly feel. Failure isn't a feeling. It's just a thing. What it means is entirely within your control. As Rumi says, your task to work with all the passion of your being to acquire an inner light. Oh, that's so good. Your only task? Inner light. Now, it's hard to see the light when everyone around you is light. When things get dark, that is where you can see yourself the best. All that you are. It's more than failure or success, right or wrong, this or that. It is so much more. Yes, failure is just a word. All words have meaning. Some words hold deeper meaning for us than others. Some words trigger us. And when they do, that is your invitation to explore. That is exactly what happened with me. I was triggered by the wording of the email confirmation I'd received. Rather than rail on the organization that sent it, I was called to really go within and see why it bothered me so much, especially since I'd quite honestly asked for it. The result of getting to know yourself better, why you do the things you do, and the opportunity to shift, change, and evolve into something even more beautiful than you already are is priceless. So if there is a particular word that just gets right under your skin every time you see it or hear it, if there's something that gets your defenses up to protect you, I would be honored to explore that with you one-on-one. I'm telling you, I don't always arrive at these realizations without a little coaching along the way for myself. It is powerful work, my friend. It is your path to freedom. Send an email to sunnythelifecoach@gmail.com and I will send you a link to my schedule so we can get to the business of peeling back those layers, going beneath the surface, and seeing who you truly are. That wonderful soul of yours that is meant to light up and shine on